break your arm,
Right.
you go to the hospital, you get an x-ray,
Yeah.
and there it is on the screen, right? Like a clean, visible fracture.
Yeah, you can literally see it.
Exactly. The doctor points to it, tells you exactly how long it will take to heal, and puts a cast on it. The diagnosis is visible. The path to recovery is, well, it's straightforward.
It's physical. It's tangible.
Right. And we naturally want trauma to operate like that. We want it to be clean and, easy to fix.
But it rarely ever is.
Right. But what if your trauma isn't physical? What if the trauma you're living with is the fact that you deliberately erased yourself from the memories of every single person you have ever loved?
Which is just, that's heavy.
It's insane. You
Yeah.
move to a city where you don't exist on paper, you have no emergency contacts, and your only coping mechanism is putting on a mask every single day to save the lives of the exact people who forgot your name. Welcome to Roll Credits, where movie lovers get the trivia they didn't know they needed. Today, we're swinging back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Spider-Man. Brand new day, a new chapter for Peter Parker after the world forgot his name.
It is a profoundly dark chapter to unpack, honestly, and it fundamentally changes the grammar of, what a Spider-Man movie even is.
It really does. And welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to look at how one of the most massive, highly scrutinized franchises in cinema history completely reset itself.
From the ground up, basically.
Exactly. We are taking a stack of production notes, director interviews, behind-the-scenes set reports, visual effects breakdowns, and cast insights to just fully deconstruct Spider-Man. Brand new day.
There is so much to cover.
There really is.
Yeah.
We're going to look at Peter Parker's new isolated life, the intense, almost indie film production shifts happening behind the camera.
Which is wild for a Marvel movie.
Completely wild. We'll get into the evolution of the stunt work and, the incredibly complex world building that bridges the emotional devastation of Spider-Man: No Way Home with the upcoming mutant saga.
The stakes here are fascinating because the film is executing a nearly impossible balancing act.
Yeah, how so?
Well, on an industry level, it has to deliver the massive superhero spectacle that audiences expect, right? It's a blockbuster summer tentpole.
Right, you need the explosions and the swinging.
Exactly. But structurally, it actually functions as a deeply grounded, intensely quiet character study about grief.
Yeah.
It explores the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters when it comes to Peter Parker's mental state.
To really understand this movie, I think we have to start by completely recalibrating where Peter Parker's head is at, right?
Absolutely.
Let's unpack this psychological reset. So the story picks up 4 years after the events of No Way Home.
4 whole years.
4 years since Doctor Strange cast that catastrophic memory-wiping spell.
Right.
Peter is an adult now. He's living entirely alone in this cramped apartment, and he is working full-time as Spider-Man.
Full-time. No balance.
None at all. But the crucial, heartbreaking detail here is his agency. He has actively chosen to stay away from the people he loves.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
MJ, Ned,
Yeah.
Happy Hogan. He knows exactly where they are, and he chooses every day not to walk up to them and introduce himself.
Because, if we connect this to the broader history of the character, this isn't just the classic trope of hiding a secret identity to keep loved ones out of the crossfire.
Right, which you've seen a million times.
Exactly. That has always been the foundational lore of Spider-Man. But this is entirely different.
How so?
This is about the profound internalized trauma of being forgotten.
Yeah.
Peter made a sacrificial choice to let the world forget him to save the multiverse, right?
Yeah.
But the fallout of that sacrifice is a deliberate, agonizing, ongoing choice to neglect his civilian life entirely. He is completely suppressing his trauma by throwing his entire existence into the superhero persona.
I was thinking about how to contextualize this for you, the listener, and it reminds me of the urge to just disappear digitally.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right? Think about deleting all your social media right now, every single account.
Just gone.
You burn your phone, you move to a brand new city where literally no one knows your face, and you have no one to grab a coffee with.
Complete isolation.
Exactly.
Oh.
But in Peter's case, he still has to show up to the most stressful, high-stakes, physically punishing job in the world every single day.
And the worst part is he can never, ever talk about his day at the office with anyone.
Exactly. So my question is, does this intense, singular focus on the superhero work actually make him a more effective Spider-Man, or does it just make him a fundamentally broken one?
Well, that is the central question the film is asking, and it argues very strongly for the latter.
That he's broken.
Highly broken. He is highly effective at stopping crime, sure. His reflexes are sharper, his patrols are longer.
Right. He's putting in the hours.
But he is completely broken as a human being. The film actually draws incredibly heavy inspiration from a very controversial 2008 comic book storyline.
Oh, called Brand New Day.
Exactly.
Wait, I know that comic run, and it was incredibly divisive when it came out.
Very divisive.
That was the aftermath of the One More Day storyline, right? Where Peter literally makes a deal with a demon.
Exactly. In the comics, Peter makes a literal Faustian bargain with the demon Mephisto to save Aunt May's life.
Right.
And the cost of that deal was erasing his marriage to Mary Jane from existence.
Which is just wild.
It is. It essentially stripped him of his previous ties and gave the writers a forced fresh start to tell stories about a single struggling Peter Parker again.
Right, because he was married for, like, decades in the comics.
Decades. Fans at the time were outraged by the loss of all that character development, but what the MCU has done here is so clever.
They adapt to the mechanical function of that reset, right?
Yes, stripping Peter of his ties, but they grounded it in the emotional fallout of Doctor Strange's spell from No Way Home.
So no demon required.
Right. It removes the demonic supernatural cheat code and replaces it with a tragic, character-driven sacrifice, leaving Peter completely untethered.
Tom Holland had a really brilliant observation about this that connects Peter's isolation to the modern digital age.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
He talked about how incredibly easy it is today to just, come home in the evening, sit in your apartment by yourself, scroll through your phone, and let your brain turn to mush.
Oh, completely. We all do it.
Right, rather than doing the hard, vulnerable work of socializing and maintaining relationships.
It takes effort.
It does. And Peter is using the identity of Spider-Man in the exact same way many people use their phones or their demanding corporate jobs.
As a distraction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is a shield against real human connection.
It operates as a very poignant metaphor for post-pandemic isolation, honestly. We see scenes of him just sitting in the dark, listening to police scanners instead of trying to make a friend.
Just waiting for the next crisis.
Yeah, and Tom Holland noted during production that Peter's decision to suppress his trauma is actually his biggest blind spot.
What do you mean?
Well, Peter believes that being Spider-Man 24/7 is the responsible thing to do. He thinks he's being selfless.
Right.
But he fails to realize that Peter Parker, like the flawed, empathetic, vulnerable person beneath the mask, is what actually makes him the hero that people connect with.
Without Peter, it's just the mask.
Exactly. Without the humanity of Peter, Spider-Man just becomes a blunt instrument, a coping mechanism.
But you can't just suppress intense trauma forever. Like, it has to go somewhere. It leaks out.
Oh, it always does.
And here is where the narrative takes a really unexpected turn. Because the mind and the body are intrinsically connected, that suppressed psychological pressure actually begins to manifest physically.
Which is fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the concept that Tom Holland pitched to Marvel, which he called spider puberty.
Spider puberty. Which, by the way, represents a massive creative evolution, not just for the narrative trajectory of the character, but for Tom Holland as a creative force within the studio system.
If only.
For the first time in his decade-long run playing Peter Parker, Holland was formally invited into the writer's room.
He was actually in there pitching.
He was sitting at the table, pitching story arcs, alongside Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige and Sony producer Amy Pascal.
Which, if you take a step back, is a pretty incredible career arc.
Unbelievable.
Right. He started as this wide-eyed teenager they cast for a small supporting role in Captain America, Civil War, and now he is actively steering the multi-billion-dollar ship.
It's a huge leap.
But let's dig into this pitch. Spider puberty. He pitched the idea that the extreme trauma and the relentless, nonstop physical pressure of his isolated life triggers a biological evolution in his powers.
Yes. The film establishes that the sheer stress his body is under forces a mutation.
And the most prominent change is the development of organic webbing. Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Because traditionally, a core pillar of Peter Parker's character is that he is a brilliant, scrappy scientist.
Right.
He built those mechanical web shooters in high school. It showcased his intellect. If his body just naturally produces organic webs now, like the Tobey Maguire version from the early 2000s, don't we lose that crucial boy genius aspect of his character?
That's a very common critique.
Doesn't it undermine his intellect?
It is a completely valid concern, but the way the film handles it actually leans into his intellect in a different way.
Oh.
Yeah, he still has to formulate the chemical composition to stabilize the organic webbing, but more importantly, this change is not framed as a convenient superpower upgrade.
How was it framed?
It is framed as body horror.
Wait, body horror? In a Spider-Man movie.
Absolutely. The film is heavily drawing from the 2005 comic storyline called The Other, written by J. Michael Straczynski.
Okay, I'm vaguely familiar with that one.
In that comic run, Peter undergoes an intense, almost terrifying biological transformation. He literally cocoons himself and emerges with new, frightening abilities, including stingers that pop out of his wrists.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is definitely horror territory.
In Brand New Day, the director, Destin Daniel Cretton, described this physical transformation as profoundly frightening for Peter.
So it's not a fun upgrade.
Not at all. He wakes up, his body is changing, it hurts, and he initially fears he is turning into a monster.
So it's not a triumphant moment where he discovers a cool new power. It's a deeply alienating experience that makes him feel even more isolated from humanity. He feels like a freak.
Precisely. He has to learn to accept this new, mutated, heavier state of being.
Right.
And on a meta level, Holland has discussed how he wants to use this mature, physically evolved version of Peter to lay the groundwork for future successors.
Oh, like passing the torch eventually.
Exactly. He is looking at characters like Miles Morales or Spider-Gwen, and he wants to eventually mentor them in the exact same way that Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark once mentored him when he first joined the universe.
That's really poetic, actually.
It is. He is aging the character out of the kid role and into the veteran role.
And to execute that shift in tone, from the lighthearted high schooler to this mature body horror trauma survivor, they needed a very specific kind of director.
They absolutely did.
And bringing on Destin Daniel Cretton was such an inspired choice.
Such a great choice.
Yes, mainstream audiences know Cretton directed Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings, which proved he could handle Marvel-scale action.
Sure.
But before that, he directed this incredibly acclaimed raw indie film called Short Term 12.
Oh, Short Term 12 is essential viewing if you want to understand the DNA of this new Spider-Man film.
For those who haven't seen it, Short Term 12 is this deeply intimate, handheld, emotionally devastating character study set in a group home for troubled teenagers.
It's so raw.
It deals explicitly with trauma, abuse, and the ways people try to heal each other when they are fundamentally broken themselves.
Right.
So to have Cretton step into a Spider-Man movie, which is arguably the biggest corporate franchise property on Earth, and bring that raw, unvarnished energy.
It's a risk.
It is such a wild collision of filmmaking styles.
It is, and there is a fantastic behind-the-scenes detail about this.
What's that?
The crew was filming these massive, expensive blockbuster scenes. We're talking multi-million-dollar set pieces. And people on set were literally turning to each other and saying, this feels like a scene from Short Term 12.
That's amazing. But how do you actually maintain that indie vibe on a set that has hundreds of crew members, massive green screens, and studio executives hovering around?
Yeah, you'd think it would be impossible.
It seems impossible not to get swallowed by the machine.
You do it by protecting your inner circle. Cretton didn't just bring his indie sensibilities to the project. He brought his actual indie crew onto the blockbuster stage. Yeah, he insisted on hiring his longtime editor, Nat Sanders, and his cinematographer, Brett Pollock.
And the history there is amazing. Brett Pollock literally shot Cretton's thesis short film when they were just students in film school.
Exactly. So amidst the chaos of a Marvel production, the core creative team making the decisions behind the camera is a group of close friends who have been making small, intimate, character-driven art together for years.
That's so rare in Hollywood.
It really is.
Yeah.
That profound camaraderie and implicit trust allowed them to maintain a grounded, character-focused atmosphere even when things were exploding on set.
Right.
Cretton has always been fascinated by characters processing trauma. And in Brand New Day, he ensures that almost every single character Peter interacts with is dealing with their own pain, reflecting Peter's struggles back at him.
But of course, as much as this is a psychological indie drama about trauma, it is still undeniably a Spider-Man movie.
Oh, for sure.
There are still bank robbers, there are still supervillains, and there are still massive explosions.
You have to have those.
Exactly. And because Peter's body is mutating, because he's getting heavier, angrier, and more monstrous, he can no longer rely on the nimble, hyper-acrobatic teenage fighting style we've seen before.
Right, he's fundamentally changed physically.
That forced the production team to fundamentally change the choreography, which brings a totally new, incredibly grounded martial arts style to this film.
It is a massive, jarring departure from the action we saw in the previous John Watts-directed trilogy.
Yeah, the style is so different.
The film actively moves away from the CGI-heavy, sprawling cosmic battles of No Way Home, where Peter was fighting magical threats in mirror dimensions, and pivots hard toward practical, street-level martial arts.
It's much grittier.
And to achieve this tactile, bruising style, Cretton brought in the legendary Jackie Chan stunt team.
Wow. Coordinated by Peng Zhang, who also worked with Cretton on the Shang-Chi.
Exactly.
But the Jackie Chan stunt team is an absolute institution in action cinema. If you have seen classic Hong Kong action movies like Police Story or Project A, you know exactly the pedigree we're talking about.
The hallmark philosophy of the Jackie Chan stunt team is a relentless, uncompromising focus on athleticism over special effects.
Right, you can feel the hits.
Exactly. It is about placing the camera to prove to the audience that the actor or the stunt performer is actually taking the hit.
Yeah, no hiding behind quick cuts.
It involves incredibly intricate wire work, using the physical environment and props as weapons, and executing highly visceral, fast-paced, hand-to-hand combat.
It's exhausting just watching it.
It is rhythmic, it is exhausting to watch, and you can practically feel the bruises through the screen. Jackie Chan himself actually visited the London set during production to oversee the work.
That is incredible.
He officially acted as the action director for his team on this specific film, and he went out of his way to praise Tom Holland's dedication to performing the vast majority of his own intense physical stunts.
Okay, I understand the appeal of practical martial arts, like I love a good gritty street fight.
Sure.
But I have to ask about the mechanics of translating that to Spider-Man.
Okay, what do you mean?
Because Spider-Man is also famous for these hyper-stylized, physics-defying poses.
The classic poses.
The classic comic book cover look where he's contorted midair, completely parallel to the ground.
Right.
If the production is focusing entirely on fast-paced, practical, Jackie Chan-style street brawling, how do they capture those iconic frozen comic book moments without it looking floaty or disjointed from the rest of the fight?
That is where the absolute technical brilliance of Brett Pollock's cinematography comes into play.
Oh.
To capture those iconic splash-page moments without relying entirely on CGI replacement, the crew utilized a highly specific, very demanding camera technique.
What was it?
They shot those specific action sequences at an incredibly high frame rate of 420 frames per second.
420. For some quick context, standard motion picture film runs at 24 frames per second.
Exactly.
That mimics how the human eye naturally perceives motion.
Yeah.
So shooting at 420 frames per second is extreme, ultra-slow motion.
Super extreme.
But how does that solve the posing problem?
Because of the physics of the human body, Tom Holland is a highly trained dancer and gymnast.
Right. He's incredibly agile.
During a practical stunt, say he is on a wire, launching himself over a taxi and twisting to punch a thug, his body is moving incredibly fast. At 24 frames per second, that motion is a blur.
You'd miss the pose entirely.
Exactly. But when you shoot at 420 frames per second, you are slicing a single second of real-time action into 420 distinct photographs.
Oh, I see where this is going.
What this allowed the editing team to do was comb through that ultra-slow motion footage and find the exact fraction of a millisecond where Holland's body naturally aligned into perfect, rhythmic, dynamic contortion.
So he isn't just hanging from a wire trying to hold a pose.
Not at all.
He is doing the actual stunt at full speed,
Hmm?
and the camera is just catching the split second where he organically hits the comic book silhouette.
Exactly. They capture the kinetic energy of the real movement, but because of the frame rate, they can ramp the speed in post-production.
That is so smart.
They can show the fight at normal, bruising speed, then briefly ramp it into slow motion right at the exact frame where he hits the pose, and then snap back into real time.
Wow.
It creates this totally unique aesthetic synthesis. You have the gritty realism and the physical weight of a Jackie Chan street fight, but it is punctuated by these stylized, breathtaking moments that feel ripped straight from a Todd McFarlane comic book panel.
It's like finding a Renaissance painting hidden inside a bar brawl.
That's a great way to put it.
That is such a brilliant use of technology. But of course, to execute these massive practical stunts, slamming stuntmen into walls, jumping off cars, swinging from streetlights, you obviously need tangible physical environments.
We need a city.
You need the concrete jungle.
Yeah.
But, ironically, to capture the gritty, tactile reality of New York City,
The production team had to leave the United States entirely.
it is genuinely one of the most amusing geographical anomalies of modern Hollywood filmmaking. 0% of Spider-Man. Brand New Day was actually filmed in New York City.
0%. The entire production was based in the United Kingdom.
This might be my favorite piece of trivia about the whole movie.
It's so funny.
Because when you watch it, you feel the grime and the concrete of Manhattan. But the actual physical locations they used as stand-ins are completely absurd.
Very absurd.
They used the city centre of Glasgow in Scotland, specifically the areas around Merchant City, George Square, and the Trongate for the major multi-block street action set pieces.
Yes.
They literally shipped in fleets of NYPD police cruisers, yellow taxi cabs, and fake hot dog stands, and just parks them in the middle of Scottish intersections.
The architectural substitutions are fascinating. They didn't just use streets. They found highly specific UK buildings to mimic the intimidating scale of American institutions.
Give me an example.
For instance, they used Phantom House, which is a massive, brutalist, 1970s-era automobile association building located in Basingstoke, Hampshire.
An automobile association building.
Yeah, they used this grim, concrete monolith to double as a maximum security superhero prison.
Spider-Man fighting his way out of a prison in Basingstoke.
Right.
Sounds like a Monty Python sketch.
Right.
And it doesn't stop there. They used the Senate House in Bloomsbury, London, to serve as the towering, intimidating headquarters for the Department of Damage Control.
Such a classic-looking building.
Plus, over at Pinewood Studios, they didn't just throw up some green screens in a warehouse. They built a massive, functional, 3-city block physical set of New York streets entirely from scratch.
To understand why a studio would spend millions of dollars to build New York and London instead of just filming in actual New York, we have to look at the creative frustrations of their previous film.
Ah, right, No Way Home.
Tom Holland was very vocal about the fact that No Way Home, despite its massive box office success, felt creatively stifling.
Why was that?
Because it was filmed during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the production was forced to shoot almost entirely on lockdown sound stages with massive blue screens.
Oh, so they couldn't go outside.
No, the actors had no tactile reality to interact with. With Brand New Day, both Holland and Cretton wanted to lean heavily back into what Holland called old-school filmmaking.
Right, because even if you have the best CGI in the world, there is a subconscious difference when an actor is performing in a real space.
Absolutely.
When you use real streets, even if those streets are technically in Glasgow, natural sunlight hits the pavement differently than studio lights hitting a painted floor.
It grounds the performance.
And the stunts carry a visceral weight because when a stunt performer gets thrown to the ground, they are hitting actual asphalt, not a foam pad covered in green fabric.
The physical interaction with the environment is crucial, but you still have the problem of the skyline.
Right, because Glasgow doesn't look like Manhattan when you look up.
Glasgow architecture at eye level might pass for certain parts of Brooklyn or Queens, but look up and it's clearly not Manhattan. This is where the visual effects pipeline comes in to sell the illusion.
So what do?
Jerome Chen and David Bosco, the incredibly talented VFX supervisors on the film, essentially had to perform digital city planning.
How does that actually work? Because it looks completely seamless. You don't get that uncanny floating head feeling that you sometimes get with green screens.
It works through a meticulous combination of LiDAR scanning and lighting data. They utilized 7 different visual effects studios worldwide for this task.
The 7 studios.
Yeah. First, they take highly detailed LiDAR scans, which are essentially 3D laser maps of the actual Glasgow streets where they filmed the practical stunts.
Okay, so they have a digital copy of the physical set.
Exactly. Then they take LiDAR scans of the specific New York neighborhoods they want to replicate.
Got it.
They use the digital New York skyline and physically drop it into the background of the Glasgow plates. But the real trick is matching the lighting geometry.
What does that mean?
Because Brett Pollock shot the Glasgow footage with specific practical lighting, the VFX teams had to perfectly match the digital New York buildings to reflect that exact same light source.
Oh, wow. So if the sun is hitting a building in Glasgow at a certain angle, the digital Empire State Building in the background has to have that exact same sun angle.
Precisely. It gives you the physical bruising weight of a practical location shoot with the pristine geographic accuracy provided by world-class visual effects.
It is a perfect synthesis of old-school stunt work and new-school technology.
Yeah.
And this meticulously crafted, tangible playground they built is populated by a brand new roster of allies and villains.
It is quite the roster.
And the casting here perfectly reflects Peter's darker, more mature psychological state.
Yeah.
Because the people he is surrounded by now are very different from the bright-eyed high school kids he used to know.
The script handles its massive ensemble cast brilliantly.
It really does.
Because every single character introduced isn't just there for a cameo, they are designed to push Peter in a different psychological direction, constantly forcing him to confront the isolation he has chosen.
Let's start with the most painful dynamic.
Yeah.
The exes. Zendaya returns as MJ, and Jacob Batalon returns as Ned. But the tragic twist is that they are completely removed from Peter's daily life.
We see that they are at MIT, they are sharing an apartment, and they are living these full, successful, seemingly happy lives without him.
Which is what Peter wanted, right? For them to be safe.
Exactly. But the brilliance of the writing is that there is a lingering, subconscious sense of phantom pain for both of them.
Like they know they're forgetting something.
They know something is missing even if they don't know what it is. Ned, for example, is utilizing his incredible tech skills to build an app called the Spidey Tracker.
Oh, yeah. The app.
Because even though the spell wiped his memory of Peter Parker, it didn't wipe his memory of the events.
Right. He still knows Spider-Man exists.
He still retains the knowledge that Spider-Man saved his life multiple times back in high school, so he is actively, obsessively trying to find this anonymous hero just to thank him.
Which is sheer psychological torture for Peter to watch from afar.
Imagine that.
He checks his phone, sees Ned trying to find him, and he has to actively choose to ignore it.
That's brutal.
And it gets even worse with MJ. She has a new love interest in this film, played by M.N.S. Fondy.
Yeah.
And seeing her move on just twists the knife for Peter. It completely complicates his emotional state.
Because he still loves her.
He wants to protect her. He wants her to be safe from his chaotic life. But the cost of that safety is watching the love of his life build a future with someone else.
It creates a fascinating feedback loop of misery.
Very well put.
It reinforces his decision to stay away, but it constantly reminds him of the agonizing cost of that decision.
Right.
And in the massive void left by the absence of his warm, supportive friends, Peter naturally gravitates toward a very different, much darker kind of mentor figure in this film.
And who is that?
Frank Castle, the Punisher, played by the returning John Bernthal.
I find this dynamic absolutely fascinating.
It's such a clash of ideals.
Because on paper, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
You have Spider-Man, who is traditionally this family-friendly, optimistic, quippy hero who absolutely refuses to use lethal force.
Right.
And you are pairing him with the Punisher, who is a brutally violent, cynical, R-rated vigilante operating out of a rundown houseboat called the Golden Girl.
It is a profound study in philosophical contrasts.
Definitely.
Bernthal has noted that by the timeline of this film, Frank Castle has essentially sworn off humanity entirely.
He's totally gone rogue.
He operates in the shadows, he has no friends, and he views the world purely in terms of targets. He is incredibly isolated, which mirrors Peter's current state perfectly.
I look at their dynamic almost like a deeply dysfunctional big brother and little brother rivalry.
That's a good way to see it.
Peter is in this incredibly dark place, and he looks at Frank Castle and sees someone who also operates in the dark, who also carries the weight of a lost family.
But their methods are so different.
Completely different. Frank's methods, like executing criminals in the street, are fundamentally opposed to Peter's core morality.
Right.
And honestly, from a purely logistical production standpoint, I love how the filmmakers navigated the PG-13 rating of a Spider-Man movie that heavily features the famously R-rated Punisher.
The compromise is so funny.
The compromise they found is hilarious. Almost every time Frank Castle gets enraged and is about to drop a massive swear word, Peter just casually flicks his wrist and webs Frank's mouth shut.
It operates as a brilliant comedic beat to relieve the tension.
It really does.
But it also serves as a perfect visual metaphor for their relationship.
How so?
While Peter is actively, constantly trying to silence and suppress the darker, more lethal impulses that Castle represents. Meanwhile, Castle is relentlessly trying to show Peter the harsh, uncompromising reality of the street-level crime they are fighting.
He wants Peter to wake up.
Exactly. Castle serves as a living cautionary tale. He is the ghost of Christmas future for Peter.
Wow.
Castle shows Peter exactly what he will become if he allows the trauma and the isolation to consume him entirely.
But dealing with a trigger-happy vigilante isn't the only headache Peter has to navigate.
Not at all.
We also have the looming presence of the Department of Damage Control, the DODC, led by a ruthless agent named Bill Metzger, played by Tremel Tillman.
They are a huge problem in this.
And the DODC has essentially transitioned from a cleanup crew into an authoritarian police force actively hunting down superpowered individuals in the city.
This is the crucial pivot point where the film begins to aggressively lay the foundational groundwork for the wider Marvel universe.
The universe is definitely expanding here.
The DODC is raiding locations, detaining individuals without trial, and one of the individuals they are holding is a young mutant named Jean Grey.
Played by Sadie Sink in her highly anticipated MCU debut,
Yes,
Jean Grey. The introduction of the X-Men is finally happening.
it is happening.
But they made a really interesting tweak to her origin story here, didn't they?
They did, and it is a change that serves the thematic core of the film.
What's the change?
In the classic comic book lore, Jean Grey's immense telepathic and telekinetic powers often violently manifest for the first time as a result of a PTSD-inducing childhood trauma, typically witnessing a friend die in a car crash.
Right, the sheer trauma unlocks the X gene.
Exactly. However, in Brand New Day, they altered her origin so that she develops her powers alongside her sister Sarah, played by Olivia Booth Ford.
Why make that change? Does it soften the character too much?
Not at all. It grounds her emerging abilities in a familial relationship rather than isolated, solitary trauma.
Oh, that makes sense.
It makes her powers a shared experience, and functionally, this provides a brilliant thematic contrast to Peter.
Right. Jean Grey is discovering her powers through connection with her sister, while Peter is actively mutating and suffering because he is aggressively rejecting his found family.
That is exactly it. Such a smart narrative parallel.
It is, and the movie is just packed with these incredible appearances that build out the texture of this street-level world.
So many great characters.
We have Florence Pugh returning as Yelena Belova. She has finally embraced the Black Widow mantle, and she is using a literal, steaming New York bathhouse as her makeshift office to meet informants.
Which is just the most perfectly chaotic Yelena thing to do.
It really is.
Yeah.
Spider-Man has to go to her to trade information.
Amazing.
We have Naomi Watts voicing Peter's new, slightly ominous AI assistant, Evie.
And we even have Mark Ruffalo returning.
Yes. But significantly, he's playing a much more volatile, savage Hulk, completely moving away from the mild-mannered smart Hulk persona we saw in the last few Avengers projects.
The inclusion of these highly specific characters, especially the shifting, unstable nature of the Hulk and the introduction of Jean Grey, isn't just fan service for the sake of cameos in a single movie.
It's setting up the future.
Big time. These characters and the specific technological concepts introduced around them are the foundational building blocks for the entire next decade of MCU storytelling.
Which brings us perfectly to the macro-level impact of this film. Let's talk about how this movie is shaping the MCU's future.
It's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Because Brand New Day isn't just a standalone Spider-Man adventure. It acts as a massive, crucial narrative bridge leading directly into Avengers, Doomsday, and the highly anticipated Mutant Saga.
The most significant universe-altering element introduced in this film is a piece of technology known as the Universal Inhibitor.
The Universal Inhibitor.
Throughout the narrative, we observe that Bruce Banner is wearing a rudimentary inhibitor collar to desperately keep the Savage Hulk persona at bay.
Right.
But Peter, applying his evolving, desperate scientific genius, manages to analyze Banner's tech and create a universal version of the device.
Wait, let me understand the mechanics of this. How does Peter, a 20-something guy in a crappy apartment, invent a device that can turn off superpowers?
He figures out a way to temporarily splice DNA at a localized level.
Splice DNA.
Yeah, the device emits a frequency that essentially nullifies the volatile or mutated parts of a host's biology without killing the host. He designs it to suppress the gamma radiation mutation in Banner, or to suppress his own painful organic webbing mutations when they flare up.
So he successfully creates a collar that can act as an off switch for genetics.
Exactly.
Which, if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, is the most terrifying MacGuffin you could possibly introduce into a universe filled with superheroes.
It is the ultimate weapon of authoritarian control.
Unbelievable.
Peter invents it with the purest of intentions, to ease suffering, to help Banner, to control his own body.
Like he always does.
But if you introduce a mass-producible device that can dampen or completely erase latent genetic abilities, that is exactly the kind of technology that oppressive government agencies like the DODC have been praying for.
Because it gives them the power to neutralize anyone.
Exactly. They need a way to counteract the rising, uncontrollable population of superpowered individuals.
Right.
More specifically, they need a way to control the rising mutant population.
The mutants.
This universal inhibitor, created by Spider-Man, is the smoking gun that sets the entire stage for the political persecution of the X-Men.
Wow.
The Mutant Registration Acts, the internment camps, the collars we see in the classic X-Men comic storylines. It all originates from Peter's tech in this film.
It is brilliant, tragic irony. Peter tries to cure his friend, and in doing so, hands the government the tool to enslave an entire species.
It's devastating.
And speaking of the government's terrifying overreach, the DODC isn't just relying on tech. They are actively recruiting some incredibly dangerous people for their enforcement division.
Yes, the film takes a major step in fully integrating the gritty, bloody lore from the Netflix Daredevil series into the mainline cinematic movies.
I couldn't believe this part.
It is revealed that the DODC has contracted the Hand, the ancient mystical ninja assassin clan, led here by the incredible stunt performer Fan Xiaoshuang, as their new, lethal private security force.
The government hiring undead ninjas to police the streets.
That's where we're at.
That perfectly illustrates how institutionalized the street-level threats are becoming.
Yeah.
But before we wrap this up, I want to pose a question to you about the deeply emotional ending of this movie.
Sure.
Because amidst all the ninjas and the DNA splicing, the very final scene of the film features this incredibly quiet, poignant moment.
It's a great scene.
It's a simple, seemingly accidental handshake on the street between Peter and his former best friend, Ned.
Just a brief touch.
And during that handshake, there's a subtle cinematic hint, a spark of recognition in Ned's eyes, suggesting that maybe the magical spell is fraying.
The spell might be breaking.
Maybe. Just maybe, memories of Peter Parker are slowly starting to return to the people who knew him.
Which is huge.
If Peter is meant to team up with the massive ensemble of heroes in the upcoming Doomsday movie, how on earth is he going to navigate a world where some people might suddenly remember all the trauma he caused, while others are still completely in the dark?
That is the terrifying narrative tightrope he will have to walk in the next film.
It's going to be so messy.
If Doctor Strange's spell is indeed beginning to fray, Peter's entire coping mechanism collapses.
Because he can't hide anymore.
He will no longer be able to hide behind the anonymity of the mask. He will be forced to confront the very people he has been desperately avoiding.
He'll have to explain himself.
It won't just be about fighting external threats like Doctor Doom. It will be about the devastating emotional reckoning of standing in front of MJ and Ned, looking them in the eye, and having to explain why he abandoned them to carry his burden alone.
That is going to be a tough conversation.
The returning memories could be his ultimate salvation, finally giving him his family back, or they could be the very thing that shatters the fragile, isolated existence he has painstakingly built to survive.
Which leaves us with an incredible amount to chew on as we look toward the next phase of this universe.
So much to think about.
Because as much as we see Spider-Man fighting massive external physical threats in this film, whether he is surviving the relentless assaults of the Hand's ninjas or pushing back against the Punisher's violently cynical ideology, the true ultimate villain of Brand New Day isn't a guy in a costume.
It never really was.
No. The true villain seems to be Peter Parker's own mind. The isolation that he actively chose his armor has slowly, suffocatingly become a cage.
It's a tragedy.
And it leaves you wondering, what if the most heroic thing a superhero can do isn't jumping in front of a bullet, or sacrificing their life, or erasing their identity?
What if it's simpler than that?
What if the absolute hardest, most heroic act is actually allowing yourself to be vulnerable?
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to be loved by the very people you are trying to save. We started today by talking about that X-ray machine, how we desperately want the diagnosis of our pain to be clean, visible, and easy to fix with a cast.
But it's not a broken arm.
No. Peter's trauma isn't a broken bone. It is a broken, severed connection to the world around him. And no matter how incredibly strong he gets, you cannot fix a broken human connection with a web shooter.
Very true.
And that wraps our first look at Spider-Man. Brand New Day. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow Marvel and Spider-Man fans, and let us know what film we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and another swing through the Marvel Cinematic Universe.